So this mural behind us, I mean, you could see it as a reference to the tortoise and hare fable, you know, maybe a metaphor about how life used to be slow paced and now it's fast paced. I doubt it. I really think what the artist was thinking is, what would it look like if a rabbit a tortoise? Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols here. Today we are playing with the brand new Fuji XF 50mm 1.0. Now, this gives us a 75mm focal length in full frame terms, and it's very much a portrait style lens, so that's mostly what we're going to shoot today. But this lens also brings up a lot of questions. I mean, first off, lenses that have apertures this wide tend to have a lot of optical compromises, so I want to see what that's going to be like. As well, there is a Fuji 56mm 1.2, which is arguably very similar to this. Is it going to be worth the difference? We're going to find out. So the goal today in testing the 50mm 1.2 is we're going to take pictures of Jordan and maybe myself, my lovely model here, in front of various Calgary art murals. And you know, we've got some reflectors here, we've got negative fill here as well, so we're going to try to spice things up a little bit. And I'm primarily going to be shooting this lens at 1.0, so that means trying to get both of Jordan's eyes in focus. It's going to be a lot of straight on shots, but I'm also going to do some stuff at 1.4, f2, f2.8, just to kind of get an idea of the character of this lens. Now, as you can see, we have a really sunny day today. We're going to be shooting both in shade and sunlight. But when you're shooting an f1.0 aperture lens in bright sunlight, you can easily let in too much light that your mechanical shutter just can't get fast enough to hold all that extra light back. So we are going to use an electronic shutter mode today, but I don't want to use electronic first curtain shutter mode, because what that can do is actually distort the look of the bokeh in the background. But I am going to use the standard electronic shutter, which does let me exceed the 8,000th of a second mechanical shutter speed on the X-T4 I'm using today. That'll let us control that extra light. The other option that can be very useful is to buy ND filters, neutral densities, that just go right on the front of the lens, and that'll cut the light for you as well. The Fuji XF 50mm having such a wide 1.0 aperture is going to mean it's bigger, bulkier, and heavier than, well, really any other prime in a similar focal length for the Fuji XF system. But really, when you get your hands on it, it's actually not that big. We have a 77mm front filter diameter. It covers this interesting concave front element. And you got two rings on here, of course, manual focus and aperture. But overall, the lens doesn't feel that large or that bulky. It's 845 grams, which is about, you know, the weight of 40 budgies, average budgies in a bag. That's what it would weigh. You can look that up, it's accurate. And that makes it well under half a notch. So really, although it is a large lens, when you're carrying it around, it feels very similar to an 85mm 1.4 on a full frame camera. It's really not that bad to manage. Now, the XF 50mm F1.0 has a minimum focusing distance of just over 2 feet, which is about 46 furlongs, which each one consists of 10 chains. So you can figure that out. That probably makes more sense. And what this really means is, if you're Jordan and you're trying to take a picture of your baby daughter, it can be quite difficult. You often find you're getting further away and not getting the composition you like. With an average adult human, though, I'm finding that I can get a pretty good sort of head kind of shot. And certainly a lens like this, because of the wide aperture, I'm going to want to do more full body or half body shots anyways. So there is a weakness with the 50mm f1.0, and that's in terms of the autofocusing motor. It's pushing a lot of glass. You can feel the motor moving the lens. And I would say that in studio applications or portraits, no problem at all. It holds up with the AF just fine. But if you were to do something like low light weddings, journalism, candid shots, on the street photography, it'd be borderline. I think you're gonna have some missed shots. And when we try doing a little bit more faster action and sports, it just cannot keep up. So it makes this lens even more specialized and even more niche, keeping it solidly in the studio and unfortunately off the street. We had a beer strictly for research purposes so that we could get some shots for bokeh. Now, when it comes to bokeh on the 50mm 1.0, first off, wide open, it is very smooth, I'd say well behaved. You know, no onion rings, no soap bubble formations. It's very clean, very beautiful. This lens, that's what it's made to do, and it does it very well. The transition from foreground to background is beautiful. Now, at f1.0, you're getting quite a bit of cat's eye, even towards the center of the frame, but by the time you stop down to f2, that does largely disappear, which is nice. And also a very minor gripe, when you are stopped down to f2, f2.8, and beyond, although it's a 9-bladed aperture, we're still seeing a little bit of that polygonal shape, but again, very minor. Overall, this lens is made for shallow depth of field, and the bokeh is very desirable on this lens. Now, as we said at the start, wide aperture lenses have optical problems. They're difficult to correct for, and chromatic aberration is one of them. Now, looking at longitudinal chromatic aberration, the loci, you can very clearly see here that areas in the foreground have a very distinct pink cast, and areas in the background out of focus a very distinct green cast. And this is unfortunate because it's very hard to correct for. Even stopping down to f1.4 and then f2.0, we're still getting a lot of loci in this shot. On a high note though, the front of Japanese Village seems to be the best loci test we have ever found. It's also a wonderful place to have your birthdays. Japanese Village, awesome, awesome, awesome. Calgarians don't know what I'm doing there. So one of the things you're going to do with a lens like this is a lot of classic backlit portraits, light pouring through the hair or giving nice rim lighting like we have here with Jordan. But this is also where a lens can exhibit a lot of flare, and amazingly the 50mm is very clean. I mean, very slight loss of contrast, but no ghosting. Like looking in the dark corner in the bottom right, there's no issues there, so it really controls flare well. And Jordan's telling me like sunlight is right on the front element, but really no worries at all, and that's very impressive for a portrait lens. All right, it's time to discuss the sharpness of the XF 50mm 1.0. Let's just get this right out off the bat. It's not very sharp wide open, not at all. As I stop down to 1.4 or f2, you can see it getting sharper, but it still doesn't quite get there until about f2.8. That's where I feel that the lens really, sharpens up and looks great. However, it is not all doom and gloom. First off, center to corner sharpness is very consistent regardless of what aperture you're at. I found it didn't really matter whether I focused in the middle or the corner, so you can feel free to experiment with different compositions and still get very consistent sharpness out of the lens. The other thing I want to say is, honestly, it's a portrait lens and you don't always want the sharpest, razor sharp results for portraits. Often you're going to soften things anyways, and of course if you are shooting wide open, you can sharpen up a little bit in post, so just keep in mind that this is a niche lens.
Jordan here to talk about using this lens for video, and we all know these portrait lenses tend to be very sharp, but they also have a lot of breathing, so pulling focus is a real problem. I was shocked to find there is no visible breathing with this lens, which means this is going to be a very interesting option if you're a cinematographer looking to have super shallow depth of field. I can see a lot of people grabbing this lens just for cinema applications.
So when it comes to photography, I know what you're all thinking. I mean, this lens compared to the 56mm 1.2, both shot wide open, are they really that different? No, I mean, very similar shallowness of depth of field, very similar look, and both excellent portrait lenses. So why buy the 50mm 1.0? Well, there are some standout reasons that really might make it worth it to you. First off, as you've seen, the rendition of bokeh is unique. I mean, it really is incredibly clean, as well as the ability to shoot into direct sunlight and really avoid flare. That's also a very unique feature. And if you consider that when you stop this lens down, it becomes an excellent, albeit somewhat expensive 50mm lens, you do have something which is quite versatile. In the full frame world, we have a lot of lenses like, 85mm 1.4s across many brands that give a very similar look and are optically fantastic. But in APS-C, it's harder to find. In fact, Fuji's really the one company that has the 56mm 1.2 to give you a similar kind of look. And so in that regard, if I was a photographer and I had the 56mm lens, I might not upgrade to this lens, but if you're looking for that very kind of full frame, thin depth of field kind of look, this is an interesting lens and it does do a lot of stuff very well. And if you're a hybrid shooter looking for both photo and video, this lens might be exactly what you want for your work. And in that case, I could see justifying the cost of it. But I do still think it's interesting that Fuji was originally intending to make more of like a 33mm f1.0, basically giving us a very normal looking focal length with a wide aperture. That would have complemented the 56mm very nicely, and that would have been very cool to have. But still, let's appreciate this lens for the merits that it does bring to the table. I hope this helps you decide whether this lens is the right choice for you, considering how niche it really is. Let us know any comments that you might have below. Check out our Instagram and our Twitter feeds. Please subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for joining us with the XF 50 1.0.